Okay, let's see if this works. All right, hopefully somebody can request. Yeah, we'll see if we can get somebody up here who can speak. Okay, Sherry, let's try to get to hear you this time. There we go.
Yeah, yeah. Now you hear me?
I do. Let's do this. Well, I want to make sure enough people get to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So can you hang tight? We'll just kind of talk kind of casually for a second until more people filter back in. Is that okay? So I've never asked you before, Sherry. I don't know much about you personally. I live in the East Coast of the U.S. I'm single, never married. I live with a dog and two cats. What are your life circumstances?
Yeah. So I live in Tel Aviv. I was born and raised in the north of Israel, near Haifa,
Okay.
and that's it. I work in a cyber company.
Okay.
So what I do on TikTok, is just for representing our country after October 7. Before that, I wasn't, so much on live.
Okay.
And this is why it's so important to me. I was, when I was a soldier in the IDF 20 years ago, I'm 40. I was supposed to be on a bus that goes through TTEC.
Oh
And
my.
it was my bus, it was the usual bus. I was supposed to go on it, every day to the army. And then there was a tea attack in the second intifada.
Okay.
And this is why, it's so close to my heart, the fear of walking in the streets and, looking behind your back every time,
Sure.
I heard you say that you can't really understand the pain and the fear, and I really encourage you to visit Israel, to visit Tel Aviv. You will see a whole new world. You will see the people. You will see the soldiers. You will see that what you hear on the media and from the Palestinian side is some of this is true. Okay, I can't admit that Israel is perfect, but I protect our people because I know the Jewish community. I know that the Israeli people, they have such big hearts. And, after October 7, we all come together and help each other. And, people got from their houses with pajama to rescue their friends. And, you know, I really encourage you to come and visit and see with your own eyes. And by the way, same as the woman that did the movie, Anna Holter,
Uh-huh.
she heard about it and then she come and visit and see with her own eyes. So I really encourage you to come and visit and see. By the way, if you come into Gaza and wear, like David Star necklace, you won't get out of there alive.
I don't
So
I don't know if that's true, especially I mean, I don't
yeah,
know. I'm not sure
yeah,
about all that. I mean, it could be. But
yeah.
the
I
thing
really, I can buy you a ticket to get and enter Gaza with, just for the experiment with David Star necklace and see what's happened to you. Really.
well, I need to grow my hair out some too and get my pants tassels and other things too to make sure I have the full look. I can't just do it
Yeah,
like this.
yeah. So, just for the experiment, this is what happened. Imagine a girl like me, Jewish white woman get into Gaza. I won't get out of there alive. I will survive maybe 1 minute.
Well, I think they have some people that have been taken captive that are probably, and my guess is they're still alive. So if the goal was only to unalive people, I'm sure that they would just abjectly do that. I think I can understand that point of view, and it could be true. I can't say for sure. The thing is, and this is what I think. This is where I think there's a disconnect in terms of what I understand, and maybe I just don't understand it. The lived experience. I got a cat here. the lived experience that you just shared a second ago, the reason why I said I can't relate to it is not because I can't mentally sort of understand it. It's that I've not had the emotional experience of it as others have, on both sides. So I don't want to be somebody who arrogantly tries to co-opt it and say that I do, because I don't. So, everyone's going to react differently to those feelings. But I empathize with people who are under those feelings, that are dealing with potential of being harmed at any time. That's got to be a hard way to live, and fearful, etc. I wouldn't want to live like that. I don't live like that, so I wouldn't want to.
Yes. And
I
on
would,
the
I would, well,
other side,
I would be happy to visit sometime. My concern is that I'd be arrested by the Israeli government, because I think they don't like people like me and others who don't speak out in a favorable way, and it's counter to what they'd rather have people do. So I know other journalists that have been turned away. I'm not a journalist, but who've spoken out very, very loudly about this issue, and they're not allowed to come into Israel.
yes, but we have Arab representative in our government, and they deny Israel, and they still being speaking in the government, and representing the Palestinian side. So we also have Al Jazeera station here in Israel. Did you know that?
I do.
Yeah, so you can come and really see with your own eyes, especially if you are so passionate and interesting by the conflict. So if you see it with your own eyes, you will understand how is to walk in Tel Aviv and see happy people just want to live. And this is our life. We just want to live in peace. And I understand that all the settlers and the checkpoints. I understand. By the way, regarding the checkpoints, if you go to an airport and you throw a rock on the policeman in the airport, guess what will happen? You can do it anywhere. Any country that you go to the border and throw a rock on the guard, it's crazy. Nobody will accept it. So try to throw a rock on a policeman in New York. It's not. I can't even imagine, because people respect the policemen in New York so much. They're afraid of them. So
Well, Shiri, you said that people just want to be happy. Is that what you said?
yes, of course.
So here's a fair question to ask. I know the circumstances were different, but in terms of the thought process and the dynamics between someone who's sort of relatively doing okay versus others who might be suffering, do you think it was okay for the average German in 1941 to walk down the street when there was a barbed wire fence 50 feet away? There were people that were literally in a ghetto who had no rights and couldn't leave. Was it fair for the German to say, I just want to be happy, don't want to be left alone?
For the German?
Right, for the average German citizen to say, I just want to be happy, I just want to be left alone.
Yes, but if that was the case, they wasn't, did what they did to the Jews, Listen, if you go to Gaza, you can see they have a marina, they have hotels, they have restaurants. I know it's not ideal, and they have the borders, and maybe they can't go easily to go outside Gaza, but it's not a prison. Come on, they live a very luxurious life. Also in the West Bank, they live with villas, with pools. You can come and see. You can come to the West Bank and see very, very rich families with villas and pools. I saw it,
I'm aware of it. There are people in both the occupied territories and in Gaza who have more means than others who live better off. That happens. It's especially prevalent in a lot of Western societies. But I want to get back to that question that I asked a second ago. And I'm not trying to stick you in a corner. I'm just trying to say that in terms of the sentiment that the average Israeli person, I think you're sort of putting yourself in the group that just wants to live well and be left alone and be happy, right? That's kind of what your thought is. And my question is, if there's something unjust going on just beside you and you are enjoying your happy life and others aren't, is it okay for someone who's beside that, like the Germans were, to say, I just want to be left alone and be happy?
Yes, I understand your point, but
Can you just answer that?
by the way,
Sure, sure.
most of the Germans
Hold on.
population.
Can you just answer that, please? Can you
What?
please answer that? Can you just answer that, please? I just want to have it, do you think it's okay or
Yes,
not
yes,
okay?
yes. I answer. If you're talking about, the German population, the German people, most of them even didn't know what, the government did to the Jews. You understand?
And that's a great point. So here's another question to ask. If the average Israeli who just wants to, quote, be happy, and they're maybe partially or wholly unaware of much of what the Israeli government and military does in the name of what it publicly states as security, and that people like myself, outsiders who don't have a relationship to either party, have observed and have called out for being like, I wouldn't want to be subject to that. I understand that Israelis, as you said, don't want to walk around in fear and have the potential to be attacked in whatever way may come. But are the activities that are done and stated as justifiable by the government, if people are unaware of it, does that still okay, or should they
Oh,
become aware of it?
yes, they should become aware of it because, half of the problem, when you want to solve a problem, you should be aware of it. So I think that everyone should be educated on the subject.
Okay.
And, I've been in the army, so I know what's going on. I know that maybe some soldiers use their power to abuse, and they are in jail now. They can do whatever they want. I was in the army, so you speaking with, first source. I have friends, I have family, all of them in the army, and they are good people. They just want to live. Do you think that if, when I was married before, my boyfriend, my ex-husband, he was in the wars, he was fighting. Do you think that I wanted my husband to just go and fight? I want him home. I want him to raise a family. I didn't want him to go to the army. None of us want this. None of us wants these circumstances. When a baby is born in Israel, do you know what we are bless him? We bless him. You can ask each Israeli about it. We bless him, we wish you when you turn 18, there won't be army anymore. This is the main blessing. We bless every baby that's being born. So you should understand that we don't want it. And do you know the peace activist Arrigoni?
No, I'm not familiar.
I will show you. Wait.
You want me to make you big? I'm curious to hear if Shiri, do you want me to make you big? Are you trying to show something to the audience?
Yes, I'm trying to make this picture. Explain you.
Is this the name of a peace activist you're talking about?
Yes, but I can't show the picture. I don't know why. Wait.
If you tell me the name, I can look it up and show it to people from my end.
Yes, so search, I will tell you the name. Wait a second. Okay, I will tell you.
Hold on. There's a method to the madness. Those folks, give it a little time here. There's a whole reason why I go through this process, which you will see.
Vittorio Arrigoni.
Say again.
Vittorio Arrigoni.
Vittorio. How do you spell the last name? Arrigoni?
Yeah.
Arrigoni. Okay, he came up. It says Vittorio Arrigoni was an Italian journalist and activist. He worked with the Palestinian-led International Solidarity Movement, through which, whatever. Is that who you're talking about?
Yes, he was a peace activist, basically like you, actually. He was just like you. He was a peace activist for the Palestinian. Then he went to Gaza, and some group from Al Qaeda, they kidnap him, torture him, and unalive him.
I'm trying to look at the story. There's an article on Al Jazeera I can look at. Yeah, I mean, that's horrible. It sounds from the way you describe it, it sounds horrific. What were the reasons behind that? Were there any reasons given from your understanding?
It was a fight between the terror organization in Gaza. Al Qaeda was kidnapping and tell age group to surrender, and it was internal fight between terror organization in Gaza, and he paid the price, unfortunately, and he was for the Palestinian. And this is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with crazy people that you know, until you see it, you won't believe. You know, I can't even compare the amount of cruelty of, you know, the T organization compared to the IDF, because, you know,
Can,
the
well,
IDF.
let me just there's a statement that was made by Khalil Shaheen of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights regarding this incident. And here's what he said. He said that he wanted people to know that our messages since the day the activist Vittorio Aragoni was killed is clear. We are against the group, the terrorist group who killed him, and they don't represent Palestinians or our society. He was part of our struggle for justice and peace. So is it possible that in every society, when something horrific like this happens, it's not representative of the broader group? For example, I'll give you an example. When David Ben Gurion, when David Ben Gurion or others, and I'll go to modern day, when Itamar Ben Gvir says on a public TV station that the average Muslim has no right to walk down a street because his security for he and his family is more important than any Muslim's freedom, is that something you agree with?
Yes, I agree. And this is exactly what you are saying about the IDF. In the
No, well,
IDF,
no, well, so, no. The question was, do you agree with Ben Gvir or do you disagree with Ben Gvir?
personally, I don't relate to Ben Gvir.
Okay, so you disagree with, so in other words, he's an anomaly. He doesn't represent the broader society. The group that harmed this particular individual is not representative of the broader Palestinian society. But I think the point you're trying to make is that because this act happened, that it somehow indicates a savagery and brutality that's far worse than the IDF. That's what I heard you say.
Okay, listen. We have in the IDF some extreme that use the power. You know, we have it everywhere. Like you said, we have it in the police. We have it in, you know, teachers. We have it in lawyers. You can find evil people everywhere. But to say that the IDF are evil because of some minority, you know, few people that, you know, rotten apples, it's not okay. Because the IDF is the most moral army in the world. I know because I've been there. Nobody needs to tell me.
Siri, what do you what hold on just one sec. Hold on. Siri, here's a question for you. This is fair. So you've seen me online for a while now. You kind of know how I am, you kind of know how I operate. What do you think motivates somebody like me to make the criticisms that I make about the IDF? Not that they're, in my opinion, are just a few bad apples, but there are some systemic issues that are worthy of being pointed out as not so great. What do you think motivates that? Am I just being arbitrarily unfair to Israel, or am I just mean-spirited or hate Jewish people?
Um, I think that, you know, you brainwashed by the Palestinian propaganda, and
Okay.
you feel you're connected to your, you know, morals and ethics, and you think that you support the poor and the miserable. And I understand because the Palestinians are starving right now in Gaza, and all of this is because age group. So imagine if you and I will connect, we will defeat age group and everyone will be happy. Also the Israelis and the Palestinians. You understand? So we all should condemn age group and the conflict is over.
Okay, so hold on, make sure I understand you. This is important. This is an important exercise. I think it shows a lot of common ways of thinking, which is okay to point out. So the question is, Shiri, I think you're intimating that I've been somehow misinformed or misled by information that I'm not perceiving accurately that has led me to some incorrect conclusions, and that your perception is that the real problem here is the particular bad actors, which are the small subset of militants that perpetrated these violent attacks, and with their removal, things can begin to improve both for the Israeli security and for the people who are Palestinians. Is that your point of view?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, let me elaborate on that then. So let's look at what happened on October 6th, because
Mhm.
obviously everything was still happening before what happened on the 7th. So if we look at the circumstances on October 6th and that which preceded that date, if you're somebody who's on the Israeli side, you want to be free from harm and you want security, fair enough. If you're someone living on the other end of an oppressive situation where you're on the wrong end of a bad deal, many people have different lives within these different territories, and a lot of them are very difficult. And I think they're made unnecessarily more difficult by what Israel chooses to do, not just by pure happenstance. But that's my take. But my point I'm trying to make is this. Why would somebody, first of all, why would somebody form a militant group in the first place? That's one fair question. And then secondly, why would they choose to enact an attack against another party Did they do it out of the blue, out of pure hatred? Was it a part of a broader sense of resisting? What are your views on why this happened and why the group formed in the first place?
I think that the age group is first of all hating Jews. And they can say whatever they want, but we see what's happening to the Jews around the world. It's not just about Israelis, it's about the Jews, and you can't prove me wrong because I know. Second of all, it's extreme fundamental Muslim beliefs that they want to control the world. It's part of their religion. I'm talking about only the extreme, because I respect the Islam. I know that the majority of the Islam just want to pray and eat and fast and be a good people to Allah. But some lunatic people just want to conquer the world, and we see it everywhere. Some of them say that even Big Ben in London are theirs. How can you explain this?
So if I'm
So
understanding you, Shira, you think that the primary motivation for the formation and the acts of this particular group that is referred to as, resistance by one side, by T words as the other, is based upon Islamic fundamentalism and fundamental hate for Jewish people, not based on resistance. Is that an accurate
I
depiction?
think it's very complex, and the root cause is the Islam extreme and the hate of Jews, and the second is the resistance. I believe that there are some good people that, like me, they just want to live, but because of the extreme, they live in a bad situation. Because of the extreme violence, they live with checkpoints and borders. So if they remove the extreme, they will have a better life, and they won't have the need to resist anymore. So
Okay.
we should unite with them and stop the violence and the extreme T groups, and then we can remove the security. And then they can live, not in an open air prison. They can live, in freedom. Not that I'm saying that it's a prison, because they have a wonderful life, but
Okay.
they could have much better life without the extreme. And they fear from them. They don't want to speak. They fear that they will unalive them, so they
So
can't really speak.
if I'm understanding, you're saying that for a larger group of people to have a better life, even if before this they felt like they were not moving in a direction they could live with, but just because of their circumstances, violence isn't the answer, and the people that are more extreme who have their heart in the wrong places, if they're removed, things will improve for the people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
to be consistent, I'm assuming that the people that devised the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising should have been eliminated and not caused violence because they were creating problems and they should have accepted their situation because that's a better than the alternative. Is that correct?
Listen, but if somebody put you in a gas chamber and you resist, I understand. But we don't do this to
There
them.
were no gas chambers in the Warsaw ghettos.
There were.
No,
Oh,
there weren't.
come on. My
People.
family been there, so
There
please
were
respect
no there
me.
were in the Warsaw ghettos, there were no gas chambers. People were then taken from ghettos towards work camps, which included in some cases extermination processes. But in this case, what I'm saying is in the dynamic of oppression and being under the authority of another group that has you horrifically oppressed, is it reasonable under those circumstances to fight your circumstances, or should one sit back and accept the best you can get based on them?
They can fight, yes, of course, they can
Okay.
fight, but against violence, okay? But when we are not doing just, if you show me one accident when the IDF just go without any reason, like October 7, to innocent people and just unalive them. If you give me one example, I will accept it.
Of the
No
IDF,
intelligence, no.
are you saying of the example of the IDF purposely unaliving civilians with no other reason that is that what you're saying?
IDF doing something similar to October 7.
Well, the difference is with the way Israelis carried it out, it's not been a single event where they necessarily unalive, other than the current situation where they've dropped munitions. But in the past, before 10/6, the way that the Israeli military operates is they do things in 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 7. However, when they've had incursions into Gaza, they then cause much more widespread damage and death as what is justified as a response to H group aggression through the form of rockets. So they call that mowing the lawn. That's their colloquial term about unaliving and destroying parts of Gaza and unaliving human beings. But I'm trying to be consistent here, and I want to let somebody else in. I'm going to let in Dirty Alex, if that's the name. But Sherry, what I'm trying to do is draw an equivalence in terms of circumstance and how somebody feels in their heart at the moment they're in a circumstance.
When I can talk,
That
thank
was the
you.
point. Hold on a sec. I'll get you in, I promise. But the point I was trying to bring up was to draw similarities. And I know that what happened subsequent or after the people who were stuck in these horrific ghettos, but while they were there, they were in a bad situation. I'm assuming everyone would agree with that. And if I were in a bad
You're a
situation with an
disgusting
oppressive,
human being. I
with an
hope you rot
oppressive,
in hell.
hold on a sec. Whoever just jumped in, we'll take turns. So if you're under the circumstances of an oppressive group and your circumstances do not appear to have an opportunity to improve, there's two courses of action to take: endure and hope for the best, or there's to do something about it proactively and see what that does to change your circumstances. It might make them worse.
I hope
And
you
one
and all your fans here rot in hell after they aren't alive. Seriously, you're sick.
yeah, I think that your contribution, quote unquote, to the conversation is anyway. Take your game elsewhere. Troll of Israel is quite a piece of work. Anyway, I don't want to get into that person. So what I'm saying, Sherry, this is really important to understand, Sherry. This is really, really important to be consistent with. So if you're on the one hand saying to one group that they shouldn't do anything that is outside of a peaceful means of response, which is a fair thing to ask for, then you have to apply that same standard to others in a similar circumstance.
It's not similar in any way.
The people in the Warsaw Ghetto were not being oppressed by the Germans.
Okay, hold on. You
Indeed,
can't.
you can't compare, some checkpoints in the border like any other country to putting people in working camps and, torture them and, burning them alive and put them in gas chambers. You can't compare it. We took care of the children of Palestine in our hospitals, and we have evidence for that.
Sherry, real quick, getting back to the point. So as far as I understand, maybe I'm reading a different history book than others have read, but there was a sequential process that the Germans horrifically mistreated Jews in World War II. The people were not immediately deported in many cases. They went through a process where their businesses were ransacked. They were collected up. They were forced to wear sort of badges, which are disgusting, and they were collected into areas that were staging and transition areas to whatever they were going to choose to do next with them, among which were the camps in the ghettos inside of Warsaw. There were no gas chambers, there were no firing squads, none of that stuff was there at that time. The people under those circumstances had their belongings taken, they were mistreated, no food, it was horrific living conditions and a horrible life. And my question is, if somebody is facing difficult circumstances like that under an oppressive ruler, do they have a right to try to find their way out from under that, or should they accept it and remain peaceful? That's a question I have for you.
Yes, they can resist, but I'm asking you on the same level, did the Jews make tea attacks on the German before they just got unalive for no reason?
Why did the people in the Warsaw Ghetto try to fight back? What was their reasoning?
Why were the Germans hating the Jews so much with no reason? They didn't do anything. They just living their life.
The question is, though, it's about circumstance. So if someone's in an oppressive circumstance, which I believe Jewish people were, and they were they were the victims. The question is, does a victim under oppressive circumstance have a right to try to find their way out of it? That's just a yes or no situation. Either they do or they don't.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so if the Palestinian people perceive that they are in a situation that is unending oppression with no way out seemingly of any other means than to try to fight, we either condemn both or we accept both as rational and logical.
Can I ask a question?
No, we got to take some turns here. You'll certainly get a shot, though. I'm not going to leave anybody out of the conversation. And the reason I'm going a little longer with Sherry, first of all, I like to talk to Sherry, but I just want to point out that those are logically inconsistent. On the one hand, even though the broader context was far different, the immediate contexts were very similar in terms of what goes through the brain of a human being enduring a circumstance like that. So I'm trying to understand the motivations and why one is not acceptable, but the other one is. That's what I'm trying to point out.
Okay, but if the Jews were doing tea attacks on Germany, did the HCOS was, the Jews didn't do nothing to the Germans. They just living their life. And, they didn't do tea attacks. They didn't send rockets. They didn't do anything. But we are dealing with an enemy that wants to unalive us, that sends rockets on us every day for years. They do tea attacks. And I understand the resistance, but this is not the way. We can find a way, trust me. We can find a way, but this is not the way. This is making the situation worse. They keep losing again and again and again. What
Okay,
left from Gaza? I'm
let's
living my life in Tel Aviv.
let's
I'm
let
winning. They making the opposite. They putting people like Ben Gvir more radical in the government, and they making the situation worse. So
okay,
what's the point?
let's do this, Sherry. Let's give somebody else a chance to come in. You and I have talked a bunch. Thank you for your point of view. It's
Thank you.
always fun to talk with you. Please stay up. I want to let Dirty Alex come in. Everyone else, please stay muted. I know everybody wants to get in. We'll get you, I promise. Dirty Alex, yeah, there you go.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What's up? Chip, by the
Hey.
way, huge fan. I love your lives. Like
Thank you.
you're very impressive with the amount of historical knowledge that you know. So I just want to say that. But Shiri, I am also Jewish. I had a quick question though. Chip asked you a question that I really wanted you to answer. When he was talking about people on the other side of the wall in the Warsaw Ghetto, did German people that were living on the other side of that wall have a right to protection, safety, happiness, all that stuff? You seemed like you answered yes, that they were just trying to live their lives, that they did deserve protection and freedom on the other side of the wall from where Jewish people were being held in a ghetto, were being forced inside and starved, much like what we are seeing right now in Gaza. So I was actually wondering if you would explain more on that, or if I interpreted you wrong when you said that Germans deserved happiness and safety and protection on the other side of the ghetto.
No, I didn't say it.
Okay, so I interpreted you wrong?
No, I say that, he asked me about the Germans, and I said that the majority of Germans, the population, they didn't even know what's happening in their government, in the policy. They didn't know that, it was the rumors, in the beginning, they didn't know what's happening. They didn't even imagine that, Jewish people are being inside gas chambers. This was like
I wasn't talking about gas chambers. I was talking about the ghetto, the Warsaw Ghetto, very, very specifically, actually. It was actually pretty well known what was going on because literally there was no way not to know what was going on if you were on the other side. The amount of rhetoric around that time presented from the Germans and against Jewish people. At that time, there were many laws already written prior to that. So Germans were aware. They knew that Jewish people were now being discriminated against. So I'm wondering how you can explain how also when you seem to be giving a little bit more leeway to Germans for the Jews.
No, I'm saying.
Hang on. Can I finish what I'm saying?
Listen.
It seems to me like you're giving a little bit of leeway for Germans. No, hang on. Than you are to any Palestinians, because when you were talking about the first thing you had to say right after you talked about how you have a very big heart was how if any of us go to Gaza, we will be killed by them, seemingly implying that all of them are like murderous, violent or anything like that. And I'm wondering why you seem to be giving a little bit more leeway to Germans during World War II than you were to Palestinians that are going through a mass famine right now.
Okay, so it's not my opinion, okay? It's a fact. And you can do the experiment and go to Gaza with David Starr on your neck and see what's happened. You want to bet with me?
See, the thing is that I can't go to Gaza right now because it's under siege, and there's also no airports, there's no roads, there's no
So I will,
infrastructure
I will
left.
get you there.
There's actually no way for me to get there right now. It would be more
I will get
dangerous for
you.
me to
I
get
will
there
get
right
you. A,
now.
I will get you a. I will get you a
I'll
ticket,
go.
and you will go
I'll
there.
go. I'll go.
Yes.
Also, I do have friends in the West Bank. I have Palestinian friends in the West Bank. I would happily go there. But like Chip expressed earlier, I am assuming I am probably on some sort of list. So,
Do you want to see what will happen to me if I go to Nablus or Ramallah, white Jewish woman, go to there? Do you want to see what's happening?
well, speaking of what's happening in the West Bank, actually, my friend who was a high school teacher in the West Bank recently went back to the school, like right after October 7th. Lots of things in the West Bank were shut down, where, as we know, the age group does not have a presence, but Israel still does under occupation. But because of the Israeli settlers that are in the West Bank, they have become increasingly more violent and destructive and legitimately carrying out terrorist attacks in the West Bank. And my friend who lives there has now had to quit her job twice teaching, a job that she very much likes, because of these settler terrorist incidents. It's now become to the point where it is extremely dangerous for you to be leaving your home in the West Bank right now. So that is just a casual update from some
So
people that I do know in the West Bank.
you are Jewish and you have Palestinian friends, but not Jewish friends.
No, I have a lot of Jewish friends here in the United States. I have a few Palestinian friends.
You have friends in Israel.
Yes, I do.
So do you know what's happening in October 7? What's happening in the conflict? Do you aware of what we are going through?
No, what happened October 7th? I'm not up to date.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Yes,
No,
I am
because
aware.
some people deny it, you know?
People are asking you to dig a little bit deeper. Well, I mean, yeah, people are asking you to dig a little bit deeper. Chip has been asking you some pretty good questions, and I've just only seen deflections and stuff.
Okay, so you are Jewish and you support the Palestinian and not the Jewish that in danger right now. You know, the soldiers that are putting themselves in danger.
Oh,
And even me, you know,
whoa.
Yeah.
Hang on. So first of all, playing this this diametric like opposition that it's one or the other is one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. Why on earth would I choose one group? Like, what makes you think that this is one or
Because
the
it's your
other?
family. If you are Jewish, you know, you suppose, you know, if you are a normal person, you're supposed to first take care of your family, then the neighbors.
Okay.
So, you know, as a Jewish,
I don't see
take
how
Jewish side.
what happened on October 7th and how upset I am over that, and like I don't see how that changes how I feel about what's happening in Gaza now. You understand? We've never spoken before. You don't know my opinions on October 7th, which but to be clear, were horrific and tragic. But what we're talking about right now is 6 months later, and I fail to see how, when I recognize one tragedy, how this delegitimized the actual like massive catastrophe that we are facing in like northern Gaza right now.
Okay, so you condemn the age group?
It's not one for me to do that.
Why? If you care about the Palestinian, so you should condemn the age group and the conflict is over.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, it's just over if
Yeah,
we
it's simple
condemn
as
age
that.
group?
Bring back the hostages, tell the age group to surrender, and Palestinians have a wonderful life, no checkpoints, no security, nothing.
Oh, okay. So that's crazy that you're saying that. That's actually quite wild. That's just straight up denialism of what's going on right now.
No, it's not. You know it's true.
No, it's not. Your own government. Are you in Israel right now? Like your
Yes.
own far right government has said quite the opposite.
Okay, but you see what when the left government was in charge, you know, when
There has never been a left government in Israel.
Rabin was left, and
No, there has never been a left-leaning government. They have all been center right or right.
No, Rabin is left.
you are incorrect about that.
So you can Google about it, you know. This is facts. I
Okay.
live here. Maybe you don't have enough knowledge, but I live here and I grew up and Rabin was left, okay?
Okay.
And Rabin gave the Palestinian airport and weapons. And what happened next? Intifada, tea attacks with those weapons he gave them. He wanted them to be free. Rabin believed in the Palestinian. This is why he was unalive by far right. Chip, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry to jump in. What I was trying to say was, and I'm sorry to interrupt everybody. So Sherry's argument is that prior to the H group, if they would just be eliminated, somehow things would just magically improve. If you go back prior to the H group's even formation in the 80s, you had the PLO, which was the sole authority in the entirety of Gaza and the West Bank. So things were not Jim dandy for Palestinians living under occupation and brutality and settlements in Gaza at that time. And I doubt they would improve much if the H group went away today, because the underlying circumstances that drives the very formation and behavior of resistance groups like the H group and others is what underlies the entirety of this entire thing, Shiri. I think what you're missing is that when you're on the other side of an oppressive circumstance, it's hard to see and feel the harm that accompanies that and how difficult life is under that. And so you may think well, let me finish. The people that are on the oppressive side who are doing the oppressing may believe, just like the slave owners did in America, that everything was just fine. Why would these crazy slaves revolt? What's wrong with these people? They're violent. But things for those who are on the oppressed side are not the way that you perceive them, and they want to get out from under their oppression, regardless of what the group is or the people's names. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. It's the underlying mentality that drives the behavior, not the groups or the names.
Okay, so do you know Ashraf, Fatah, Hezbollah? You know, it's not age group is a code for all terror organization. It's not age group. It's the radical idea to Palestine to be free from the river to the sea and to eliminate all Jews. This is the radical ideas that we have. Yasser Arafat, Ashraf, Fatah, you can read all about it. You know, it was before age group, and you know, maybe we will have
Okay,
another.
can I interrupt for a sec?
Who said that?
My name's Tina. I'm from Beirut, Lebanon.
Well, there was one person before you, Tina. Could you just give me a second? I think there was somebody. Hold on. There's guy got Hebrew. I got to be fair to people. There's somebody with Hebrew initials. I don't know how to say it. I apologize. They're in the upper right. Would you like to come in and say anything?
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Chip.
Yeah, you too.
It's the second time I talk with you, and I want to give you a compliment, but a serious compliment, because you are against Israel. You are a Democrat person. When I come to panel Palestinian, they use me like a tool. I don't feel that they want to hear me. They all the time trouble and laughing and behave not nice. And here I feel that I can talk, you can listen, and it's a good feeling.
Good. Yeah,
It's
welcome.
a good feeling. Yeah. Thank you. But what I want to say to you, we talk about the plant of the last time, the plant of the first attempt to blow the Twin Tower by Muslim extremists, Al Qaeda. It was in 1991. Yeah.
I thought it was
And
93. Maybe I'm wrong.
What?
I thought it was 1993, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, maybe. Okay, no problem. If you are right, it's okay also. But what is more important, it's the meaning, the bad meaning that they have to not only to blow this tower and after they succeed, yeah? It shows how much they are smart. after a few years. It's the plan for America, for you, for all the American, to control United States. It's called the 100 Years of Ruler Islam on America. And it's a document trial in the trial of this terror T group. You have a trial, you have a document who are talking about this exactly. And if you know Brigitte Gavriel, you asked me last time, bring me something. I said to you, now go to Brigitte Gavriel. She's famous in America, and she has this document. And you can check also in Google about this.
Can you say the name a little more slowly? I didn't quite understand what you were saying.
I say Brigitte Gavriel. Brigitte Gavriel.
Brigitte
You hear
Gabriel?
about her? Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, she's very
I'll look it up.
famous. She's a Christian who grew up in Lebanon, and she talked very good Arabic. And she wore America before 12 years about this. A long time ago, she talked about this. She's against immigration of Muslim to America also. Why? She know why. But I say, what I see now about this, it's their progress very good now because there are only 5 million in America, but they have influence of 20 million now. And if we want to defend ourselves, we have to look at the reality in the eyes and to the bad in the eyes also. When I was in Holland before 30 years, I see what happened also now. What will be happen now? Because I see the people who come to Holland and to France, and I knew what happened now. I was only 22. And sometimes it's not nice to say things. But believe me, if you check the plant, they are going well with this plant. They are more dangerous. They bring mosque, they bring everything. And they don't have a plan to be a friend of the other one. They want to control because they have a plant. The plant is Dar el Salam. Where we have Salam, in Arabic Salam it's peace, when all the world will be Muslim, one part, no Shia, no this, Muslim, Sunna or Shia. Okay? And see about the influence of Qatar money supporting the Brotherhood of Muslim. Who is Hamas? I ask you. He care about the Muslim? He care about Gaza people? He care about the Palestinian? No. It's the organization of the Brotherhood of Muslim. The big movement, big movement. Control all the Arab. And they have a plant, and they are going with this plant until the end. And I want to say to you, I'm not a prophet, but what I see now in Europe, I see one, and I see one and one, it's two. Also in Israel, I predict what happened with Hamas. I talk in the radio. I warned Netanyahu before he gives Shalit free for 1,000 more from 1,000 murderers from the T group. I was against this. All the time I was against deal with them. And when he started a fight against Hamas, I say Hamas have to finish. Not now. Before, if we finish Hamas before 15 years, when it was small, it was more easy for everybody. Because I know things. I feel things also.
Okay, so let me summarize for the group what I think we just heard. Okay, so the motivations for all this is part of a bigger sort of Islamic, some people call it a caliphate or plan to control stuff, that the attacks in America were driven by the same interests, that the groups we're seeing operating in Palestine are sort of more allegiant to that mindset than they are towards the people themselves. And I've heard that argument made, and I've analyzed it, and I've tried to get my head around it. And where I come down on that is, that makes no more sense to me than someone who would say, quote, the Jews control the world argument. And I think there may be some people who want to see the imposition of Islam on others, but I don't believe that's the dominant reason for what we're seeing in Palestine. In fact, there are Palestinian Christians, and they're certainly not part of the Islamic crusade, but they want to see self-determination as well. So you can make that argument, and maybe your 1 + 1 + 1 does equal 3, but I think it's more like 17. So it could be different. I want to let I think the next person was going to be Handsome
Can
Harry,
I
and
say
then we'll go
something to
to.
you? Can I say something to you
It's got to
first?
be 15 seconds or less. I got to let someone else in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Europe have to prepare to a butcher who was like in Israel, more worse. Why? They take weapon. The European don't have weapon. You are American have weapon inside your house. But the people in Europe, the Christian, don't have weapon to defend. The Muslim take weapon and weapon and weapon. And believe me, I'm sorry to say this, it will be a big butcher because also Turkey can involve inside also. So
Okay,
I see black because the reality is black.
we'll
Okay,
see.
and what I
Yeah.
say, I
Well,
know it's
so you think there's going to be some sort of major violence in Europe because people don't have arms to protect themselves? We'll see what time tells. Maybe you're absolutely correct, but I seem to think that in terms of, and there may be other things going on that's separate from Palestine, which is probably in my mind more likely. But my understanding is, and I could be completely misled, like Shiri thinks that I am, but the struggle in Palestine is over the history in their region and the historical problems they've experienced as people vis-a-vis others who have moved in and done what they wanted to do. And that just makes more sense in terms of what motivates behavior. So anyway, let's go ahead and go to Handsome Harry, and then we'll go down the line here. So thank you, Handsome Harry. How are you?
Hi. Hi. Chip, Chip and Sherry, do you know who Al Husseini was? I think I'm pronouncing it right. He was a World War II Arab, and it was a plan for the Nazis wanted to take over the Middle East, and they hired this guy Al Husseini or something like that. I have to look it up, but he to brainwash the people of the Middle East to hating Jews. So I don't know how much that is left over. With that said, so I don't know if that inbred is in Hamas or if it's not there at all. So that's just something that nobody seems to know about, and I thought I'd put it out there. You could look it up. His name was Al Hussein. That wasn't his. He had a big long Arab name. Anyway, so well known in history. So it was spread, but anti-Semitism was spread to the Middle East from Germany. But also, that's a little bit not the comparing the Palestinians to the Polish situation, because I mean the Nazis just hated the Jews, wanted them all dead. I don't think Israel wants all the Palestinians. I mean, some Jews do. I know that because I've heard them say that. But it's a different situation, kind of. But uh, that was the worst UN decision. It's not working. It's never going to work. We have to come up with something else. And my question to Sherry and Chip, the West Bank was. She mentioned the Rabin, and she's a little bit wrong about this. Rabin had a peace, and Clinton had a peace agreement where he asked, or said, all the Israelis have to leave the West Bank, and they assassinated him for that. So, how much, if say the West Bank was completely taken out by no Israelis could own land there, and the Palestinian is totally giving it to Palestinian, how much would that solve? Now, would Hamas still want to kill all the Jews because of the left over from World War II? Or would that make them, but I know there was a peace agreement, and there was a lot of peace, and they were talking peace, and people seemed to be happy before the Israelis killed Rabin because they didn't want to leave. Now, I work for the Hasidic about an hour away in Orange County, New York. I used to. I don't really anymore, but for 25 years or so. And they're doing that. They're building it's probably the largest building project in the United States. And they're claiming lands over there. And a lot of the locals are really pissed off, but there's nothing they could do about it. They have ways of getting around the laws. They control the politics by numbers. They vote in a block. So my questions to you too are, is the West Bank that big of an issue, or is it just pure hatred of the Jews? My other now Netanyahu was warned. His intelligence agencies warned him of this. This is all on him, and he ignored them for some reason. You have to tell me, why would he ignore such a thing? Now the genie is out of the box, whatever it is, out of the bottle. So it's really hard to fix, and you can't just. They're in the tunnels. It's really a real problem getting these people out there now. Getting them out of there. But could you answer the West Bank issue? How important that is?
Yes, can I answer?
Yes.
Sure, you go first briefly, and then I'll follow.
Okay. So listen, do you understand that Israel is, as whole is our land since forever, including West Bank, including Gaza.
Sure, the question was, if the West Bank were to be returned and Rabin had not been assassinated, would that solve things, or would the H group, because of hatred towards Jews, continue?
They continue. They want the entire Israel. They want Tel Aviv and Haifa as well.
Okay. And so I don't speak for anybody in Palestine, but I can go with what the charter says. The 2017 revised charter by H group. And the H group does not speak for the totality of the Palestinian people. They speak to their movement in Gaza. The PA may feel differently, but what their charter says, if you take it at face value, is that while they do not recognize the Zionist entity, meaning Israel, they are willing to accept as a compromise a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 borders. So they're being politically pragmatic. They also removed any language that was, anti-Semitic in terms of wanting to unalive Jewish people, and they emphasized this is about oppression, whether it be in Palestine or elsewhere, and that everyone has a right to advocate for their own autonomy and freedom from oppression. So with that regard, I don't think it's politically practical. I don't think the Israelis, as we saw just a long time ago when there were far less settlers, somebody got assassinated for even mentioning the possibility of it. I don't think it's politically practical.
We tried this solution in Gaza. Ariel Sharon was, removing all settlers from Gaza. It was very, very painful. People remember the day that people was crying, and, it basically was like a civil war between the settlers and the soldiers. And we did this in order to clean Gaza for the Palestinians. What we got in return is more tunnels, more terror, and October 7. And this is what...
That's a very standard conversation point. But Sherry, here's the question I have to ask you. If you're watching a school playground and you see this really strong, broody bully with a big black combat boot stepping on a little scrawny kid with his hands tied behind the back, and the bully has taken a series of kitchen knives and stuck them in the side of this little scrawny kid. And the bully, in his kindness, decides to pull one of 5 knives out. Should the kid on the ground still be trying to fight out from under the boot on his neck, or should he just be peaceful and quiet? Because that's the equivalent of what happened. Remember that the Palestinian people, regardless of who their government is, they see themselves as a common struggle for autonomy and self-determination. So if a small area of the territory that's been taken from you is returned, which was illegally taken from you, is returned, then the question is, if you still see the rest of your brethren suffering, should you sit back and just go, okay, well, we have a little more land here, we should just shut up and be quiet? Or do we keep the struggle up for the total liberation of our people, which is their whole reason for existing right now, is to gain liberation? You can really fault them for fighting back still? Does that make any sense to you?
So from the Jewish point of view, if you see Ben Gvir, Netanyahu, the Likud party, if you see their point of view, and also mine, this is our land. And when we, give Gaza and West Bank, we give it, as a compromise. We're not returning anything, because this is...
Okay, and Sherry, therein lies the problem. If I take your car and you claim that every car in North America is yours, and I come take yours, that's not you giving not giving my car back. You took something that did not belong to you. It wasn't land where you were living. You just claimed to come in and occupy it and settle it. And then when you pull your people out, you claim this great gift of land. That's not how it works. Just because your Bible or your belief system or your deity tells you it is so, everybody who's living there at the time does not believe what you believe. So you took it by force.
It's not the Bible, it's history. It's history.
Hold on. Okay, we gotta let some other people in. People are kind of itching at the thing. So the next person was George, then TW. So go ahead, George.
Yeah, Chip, I heard you on another live yesterday, and um,
This is the same instigator that has been haunting me and hawking me forever. Please go away. Just go away, for God's sakes. Okay, go ahead, TW. TW, you ready or?
Work. Okay, finally the mic works. Hi. So I'm from Beirut, and before I start, just so you know a little bit of my background, I'm Christian Lebanese. So, like, when I talk about what's going on, I know what I'm talking about because I live among Muslims, and I'm not a Muslim. And so what they've been talking about, plans for Muslims to take over the world and all that stuff, that's just silly. You know, religious extremism, whether it's Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, is bad for everybody, and it ends up creating wars everywhere. And one thing I wanted to say is there's a lot of Palestinians in Lebanon because they left, obviously, in 48 after the Nakba. And so I have Palestinian friends, and they're not anything like ISIS, like the Israelis or the Zionists would like us to believe. So they're very far from being religious, that extremist. I'm not saying they're not. They're very religious people. They pray. But they're not after killing everyone who's not a Muslim or obliging anyone to live under their rules. They're here in the camps. They live together with Christian Palestinians. There used to be Jewish Lebanese and Jewish Palestinians. Until they moved, most of them moved to Israel. And I'm pretty sure there are a few more Jewish families here in Lebanon. And we all live together, peacefully, more or less, right? Until the whole state of Israel was created. So really talking about Muslims wanting to take over and rule the world is silly, in my opinion. Also, the Palestinians were offered peace deals that were really unfair, and nonetheless they accepted the 1967, I think it was, borders, which I think was quite nice of them, considering this is originally their land. And yet the Israelis, the Zionists want all of the land. You hear them talking, and these people want everything from Iraq to Egypt. And I mean, if your God promised you this, it's your God, it's not our God. So you cannot expect me to be okay with that. I really don't understand how they can come up and say these things, and like, it's just, it boggles my mind that somebody can think they can come back hundreds of years later to a land that they'd left and say, okay, I used to live here several thousand years ago. I'm back. I'm going to take it all because my God gave it to me. It boggles my mind. I'm not particularly pro-Palestinian originally, but after the past 6 months, I changed my mind 100%, What's going on is so unfair, and it was going on before October 7th. This didn't start. If you see what they're doing to the Palestinians in the West Bank, where there's no Hamas, they keep talking about every other word is Hamas, Hamas, Hamas this, Hamas that. What about the West Bank? There's no Hamas in the West Bank. And yet they go over there and they take over people's homes. They arrest people for no reason. They put them in prison for years at a time. Sometimes it's little kids who are 13 and 14 who are going to prison for years. They're being tortured, interrogated, mistreated, and then they come out. And what do we expect them to be? I mean, some of these people have had their parents killed right in front of them, and we expect them to come out and not to want to join Hamas? Of course they're going to want to join Hamas. Sorry, I get a little bit. So yeah, I just wanted to say it's not fair. What they're saying is really not fair. I'm not Palestinian, so I don't really have a bone in this. But from a humanitarian point of view, it's I don't know. So that's it. And I wanted to say thank you because I listen to your videos, and And I like the fact that you let both sides speak, and you listen to both, and you're standing on the right side, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I try. I mean, no one's going to be happy with you all the time, right? You have to do what you can, but objectivity is an interesting line to try to dance on, and we all try to be, but we all have our biases as well. So, but I do listen. I try to be fair. I try to come to people's defense when there's mistreatment going on, regardless of who they may be and what. It doesn't matter. It's about behavior
Yeah.
in the end. Okay, let me bring up. There's someone named Be Blessed. I want to let just real quick before Be Blessed comes on. This is just sort of a technical thing that happens in TikTok, unfortunately. So there have been several people in the guest list that have been trying to come up, and a lot of times it just times out. So the way to fix that usually is to exit the TikTok app and then come back in and then re-enter the live and re-request, and that usually will fix it. If that doesn't fix it, then you need to take down your data like on airplane mode. Try doing that. That usually fixes it. So maybe do both and come back, and that'll definitely get you in here. I'm not trying to keep you out. Okay, Be Blessed. What would you like to share?
I'd like to first address the blatant Islamophobia that was being spewed by Tit. That's the reason why he doesn't get allowed on the pro-Palestinian panels, and hopefully no other panels, because when he
Was that the
comes,
name of the person who was talking about the Islamic plot or
yeah,
something?
I believe
Okay.
his initials were TIT, so I'm reading that as Tit. But yeah, when he comes up here and he says that Europe should be worried because the Islamists are going to come and are going to be at your borders, that's blatant Islamophobia. It serves his agenda because it means that he can instill fear in Europeans. I live in Europe. No Islamists, as they keep using that ridiculous word, are going to attack anybody. What I do see, however, is the Zionists coming in and making sure the one party that we had the opportunity to be able to take out, this horrific Tory party, being instigated and gutted out by the Zionists to do their bidding. So when I see Islamophobia being allowed on these panels, fine for us to disagree, but there has to be a line. There has to be a line that it should not be allowed to be crossed. And when people like Tit come up here and say those kind of things, they should be immediately disconnected. Or they should be allowed, or people should be allowed to correct them, so that making sure that that kind of stuff isn't being spewed out to 400 people. Equally, when Handsome also said the same thing. Some of what he was spewing was historically inaccurate.
Yeah, that's a fair point. What I try to do is, again, this is just a style, but some people feel that they should be immediately cut off. The reason I let people talk themselves through their point of view is so much so to make the point to others of how seemingly absurd some of the allegations are, rather than cutting them off and then kind of making it so that there's no conversation. At the end, he said 1 + 1 = 3, and I said, well, I think 1 + 1 + 1 = 17. It just doesn't seem to correlate. So I agree with you, and I don't know why. I think it's an easy deflection to not look at one's own misdeeds and point to the potential misdeeds of others and try to say, well, what about these people doing all this great stuff? I don't believe that the attacks that were levied in America were solely done by people who are, quote, Islamists. I think they all had other people involved that are much deeper than we can even imagine, that seemingly serve broader purposes. That's my best guess.
The thing is, I think that when we look at these things, we have to look at freedom of speech laws. And there are certain things that are not protected by freedom of speech laws. Hate and instigating are one of those things. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is coming out and spewing Islamophobia, Handsome, it would be considered as something that is outside of that. So nobody is trying to silence these people. They just should be a line that we draw in the sand, where we should not be allowing people to instigate and spew hate. And that was my issue.
No, I appreciate
also like
that.
to address.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I'd like to also address some of the things that Cherie was talking about.
Okay.
So I'm going to use her logic. According to her, her issue with the Palestinians is they want to be able to have all of Palestine from the river to the sea, right? If I'm understanding correctly, that isn't in the charter that is being put out by the H group. However, that currently is in the charter for the Likud party, where they say, from everywhere that I can see, will be Israeli sovereignty. So according to Cherie, the Likud party are a T group. So I'd like to understand. It's a shame she ran away when I came up. But I'd like to understand if
she didn't run away. I cleared space for other panelists. It wasn't her leaving.
Okay, well, So according to people like Shuri, then they're currently being governed by a T group. So given that they're being governed by a T group, is there any reason why the blue hats shouldn't be coming in and wipe them out? This is the Likud party and all of the T's that are currently in power over there. Just an obvious question. Again, this is from the logic of somebody who is Israeli. I have questions like that. When she says, oh, where is the violence? This is happening every single day. We're currently in Ramadan. While we're in Ramadan, every single year without fail, the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex is raided. Every single year. And every single year, it happens where there is instigation and then there's boots on the ground and there's extreme violence against people who are fasting. And all they want to do is to be able to go and pray. When you have people like Sherry sharing platforms with other people on who they regularly interact with and are posting videos of the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex and saying, you're going to be next. That's the kind of horrific violence that we're sharing platforms with. And yet we're the ones that get silenced, not them.
Yeah, it seems like a double standard, right?
Very much so. And again, this is why I find it very uncomfortable to be on your platform sometimes, because when I hear them speak, I don't want you to be correcting their language for them. I want them to be completely misunderstood. I don't want them to be understood at all, because I want all of the messy crap that comes out of their mouth to be heard by all 400 people, and for all 400 people to be able to deal with the fact that these people are not interested in peace. They're interested, as it says in their charter, making sure that they wipe out the Palestinian people. This isn't something that we arrived at overnight. They keep talking about October the 7th like as if that was some magic. It was a magical date for them, because suddenly people they thought they could oppress at will with absolutely no resistance did resist.
Sure, I see that. I think to be balanced in a certain way, not to take sides, but I think that the representation of the H group and some of its militants or other militants in the Palestinian territory don't represent the views of every Palestinian. And I think, in fairness, the hard rights and the crazies in the Likud party and the others, even more far right than them, I think that not all their views are espoused by a good segment of Israeli sort of secular life. I think that there are probably a vast swath of people in most societies that are pretty much, disconnected from some of these more harsh ideologies and stuff like that. But I understand.
Have you seen?
Let me. Where it
No,
go?
1 second,
Where it
please.
go?
1
You
second.
don't stop talking. Let
1
me
second.
tell you something.
No, your guys spoke for hours
Let,
on end. So
Hold
give
on.
me
Hey,
my time.
Truman, we take turns here. So if you'd like to do that, I'm happy to keep you. If you prefer to interrupt, then I can let someone else come up.
So my final point on this, there's a video on TikTok, sorry, not on TikTok, well, you probably can find it on TikTok, but on YouTube,
let me tell
of
you
Joe Biden.
something. I'll go
There you go.
up. I go up.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to have you back, Truman, but not if you're going to interrupt. We just have a very simple process here. Everybody gets a turn. So you're welcome back if you want to play by those rules. If not, there's other lives where you can do that stuff. Go ahead, please.
So there is a video on YouTube of Joe Biden in 1986 where he is talking about South Africa, and he speaks very clearly and very unwavering about his language of the way that the Black South Africans are being treated. And his point was, or in his exact words were, the South African people are being crushed under the boot of apartheid. Again, his words, our duty is to the Black South Africans, not to the Afrikaans that are oppressing them. The Black South Africans are the ones who are suffering, who have tried everything. They have tried to have conversations, they have waited, they have done everything in their power. So when they resist, even though they resist with violence, what choice do they have? This is the current president of America saying that he is okay for Black South Africans to use any means to be able to resist, including that of violence, because that is the ultimate choice that they have been left with, because nothing else worked. And yet the very same thing that is happening to the Palestinian people is not being allowed. So he understands it, or he understood it when it was happening to the South African people. The South African people, by the way, who are currently in the ICJ arguing for Palestinian people, are saying that is exactly what we were suffering with, in some cases by the exact same people, because from 1986 all the way to 1994, what's it called? White South African people left South Africa and moved to Israel because they couldn't bear the thought of apartheid not being there for them. Instead, they wanted to continue that, and they went to another country where apartheid existed. So when you see South Africans saying, this is exactly the same thing that happened to us, this is exactly the same violence that we had to go through, and then you have the President of America saying he understood that at that point, but yet the Palestinian people do not have that right. I would like to understand the double standards, not just for him, but every single American, and not any single person who understood it for the South Africans, but do not understand it for Palestinians. I'd like to try, somebody help me justify that.
Okay, yeah, let's have, like, be nice to hear somebody's point of view. Thanks for coming up. Be blessed. Okay, if there are people that are trying to connect in, I'm not keeping you from coming in. I'm actually the suggestion that I have for you, if you're not connecting, is to exit TikTok, maybe restart your data connection or your Wi-Fi, come on back in, and then re-request, and I'll bring you up. But a lot of people keep, like Brenda especially, has been doing it a few times. Okay, we do want to give. We do want to give. I just want to make sure people are aware of this. If you come in late or if you can't stay and you want to check out the conversation, these are all being recorded, and usually within a few hours of their completion, they're uploaded to YouTube and Rumble. The way you can find me on those two sites is through the link in my bio, which says Linktree Chip Barnes. And if you're outside the US, there's not a clickable link, but the text that you need to type into your web browser is in my bio. So either way, all the archives going back to late December are up there from all these lives, probably several hundred hours. So have at it, enjoy it. But by the way, these are unedited. No matter what people say or do, I just put it up as it is, warts and all, and you can be the judge. Okay, Mikhail, what's on your mind? Mikhail, are you there? Okay, maybe Mikhail took a break. Let me see if I can get somebody in who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. I tried bringing up Bernie. Let me bring up TLX457 to see. They've been waiting for a bit. So I tell you what, Alex, while we try to get everybody else's work, I'll get the next person up. Why don't you jump in and say whatever you'd like to share?
Oh, I was still gonna wait. I mean, I kind of wanted to address some things that Handsome Hank said. Is that what his name is? I don't know. I can't really see. It's cut off.
Harry, I think it was Handsome Harry.
Harry. Yeah, no, he had just said something about how. Oh, it's somebody else now. Well, anyway, I actually have to go. I'm gonna run. I actually have to go, so I'll let somebody else take my turn. But thank you for having me, and I would love to join again soon.
It was a pleasure, Alex. Yeah, please come back. I enjoyed having you here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day. Yeah, okay, let's give, Mikhail, are you ready or are you still busy with some other things? Okay, see if we can get somebody else to come
I'm
in.
here,
Okay,
Chip.
let's see if we can
Just,
get somebody else to come in.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. I
Hello?
can hear you. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you, Mikhail. Yes.
Chip,
Yes, I
okay,
can hear
very
you.
good.
Now you're back on mute, and I did not put you on mute. Mikhail, did you want to come back? I think you have to unmute yourself. I don't know what happened, but I don't believe anybody on this end puts you on mute. There you go.
Can you
There you
hear
go.
me?
Yes.
I'm not
There you
mute.
go.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, very good. Chip, what I just want to bring, something to light, man, that we really all need to be very, very worried. Because what's going on here is 90% of these people, I'd say more than 95% of the people of the world are not terrorists, man. People are human beings, and they like to live in peace, and they like to have peace for themselves and for their neighbors. So what's going on right now in Israel, and with all this violence and all this killing and all this, support, and sending all these weapons and stuff, and all this innocence being wiped out for no reason other than anybody should know this has nothing to do with the H group. This is all about them stealing that land and putting up a Ben Gurion canal. It's about getting the people out of there. You can hear when you heard Trump's son-in-law talk about, oh, it's prime land. These people are beyond reason, man. They don't even. It's like they're in a world all by themselves. But what's going on is they're kind of changing humanity, man. It's really starting to for the last almost 6 months, we wake up to seeing kids being shred to pieces and people being blown walking on the street and with their little drones just blowing them up, man. When is enough, man? This is getting too much. I think for a lot of people and anybody that can sit there and defend this action, I don't think they're human, man. These are not human beings. These are devils. This is evil. I mean, I hope 95% of the world hearing me right now, whoever agrees with what I'm saying, it just makes no sense. And what's going on is they've hijacked the American government. America was never known for something like this, man. They're stealing our wealth. They're stealing America's wealth. They're stealing our weaponry. What other country in the world is getting away with what Netanyahu gets away with? What other leader in the world was able to do 1/10 of what he's getting away with? You know why he's able to do that? Because they own the government, man. They get $4 billion a year from us, and they just send back $100 million and buy our government, buy our senators, buy our legislators, and anybody that speaks up against it, they censure him. And there's no, our senators now and the Congress people, there's no term limits. So once they invest in that person, they don't have to worry about it no more because he's going to stay there and he's going to keep getting paid his $1 million or $100,000 a year average. And he's going to keep voting with them whatever they want, whatever law they try to bring up. They're just going to pass it. I mean, they're trying to take away America's amendments, our amendments, freedom of speech. Look, we're scared to talk on this channel, on this platform, because they're going to ban it. They're going to take it down. They want to cancel it. And any legislator that you hear, people, please, man, you hear these
I
legislators.
can't. I absolutely cannot.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm good. I really hope you human beings, we just wake up together, man. It's. I mean, they're dragging us into World War III here, man. Don't you guys see all this talk going on with Russia and it's just us human beings.
Miguel, what do you know about Israel?
Well, what I know is I was born in Lebanon, and I come back here when I was 2 years old, and I've been in America for over 40 years. So I know what Israel does to us in Lebanon by hitting our bridges, by taking out our
Hold
water,
on,
by
Mikhail, hold on one second.
believe me,
Hold on, everybody. I need to restate the rules for everybody so you understand how to operate. So first of all, please don't interrupt other speakers. That's first and foremost. Secondly, we take turns, so I'll do my best to get to you quickly. We try to keep everybody under 3 or 4 minutes, but give people a chance to speak their mind. I value everybody's input. I don't mute people. I give everybody a chance to speak their piece, even if I completely disagree with you. So that's respectful. You'll ask other people. That's how it goes here. But if we interrupt each other and talk over each other, nobody gets to hear it. So that's why we do it that way. So please finish up, Mikhail, and then we'll go to our next person, which I believe in the order was going to be. I'll get to you, Dr. Molina, next. How about that? Go ahead.
okay. So am I back on?
Just finish up, please, if you can. Okay, I tell you what, I think Mikhail, also there's some audio issues there. Dr. Molina, welcome. What would you like to share? Hmm. Milena, Milena, I'm not trying to interrupt you. The audience is saying they can't hear you, and I want people to be able to hear what you're sharing because it's important. If you don't mind, this is what usually fixes this.
If you don't mind, this is
Hold
what
on.
usually fixes the.
So if you don't mind, Dr. Milena, you're welcome to come back in right away. I'll put you to the head of the line and put you in front to talk again. You probably have to leave the live and restart your Wi-Fi or your signal, like by going go to airplane mode. Well, can the audience hear Dr. Milena now? Yes or no? They say they say no, they can't hear you. Yeah, if you just do the thing I shared about reset, either restart your phone or restart your data connection, it should fix it. Okay, but I'll get you right back in when you come back. Thank you for being patient with that. Okay, the next person that was up, I think, is Kingry, then Brenda, then it's just Fee. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Kingry.
Hi guys. Hi Chip. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I was just very short. I live in Dearborn, Michigan, and if anybody knows anything about that, it is mostly Muslim. And for the person Cherie or Sherelle or whatever her name was
Cherie.
that said that we couldn't walk safely down the street of a Muslim area, I have to completely disagree. These people are the kindest, most loving humans I've ever met in my life. I feel safer around them than I do most people. And I love them. And so I just could not more strongly disagree with her on that. And also, the veil is off of Israel. We have now seen with our own eyes the reality of what the IDF is. You can't dispute or tell me what I see with my own eyes. And we are seeing the destruction and the murder and they ran a person over that had zip ties on their hands with a bulldozer. You can't unsee that. I can't unhear the little voice of, was it Sidra? I think her little voice begging for help and saying she peed herself. As a mother, I'll never unhear that ever. I'm going to cry because they want us to believe their lies and they want to tell us what we see with our own eyes. And I will not ever be able to go back to believing anything that anybody says from the Israel government. That's not to say that I'm against Israel, because I'm not. I think that what October 7th happened, I cried for those people. But it's just, I'm for humanity. Can't we all just be for humanity? How can they not see the inhumane actions of what's happening right now? I don't understand it. I will never understand it. It breaks my heart. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you, Chip, so much for letting me talk.
Thanks for being here. The young woman's name, her name was Hind, Hind. And if you don't, those of you who don't know, she was a young lady. Her family had been unfortunately engaged by the Israeli armed forces in a car, and they were all unfortunately unalived. Her mother, father, brother, sister, etc. She was the last remaining survivor in the car. She got on the phone. She called a first responder, like what we would call 911. They talked with her on the phone saying, we have somebody coming your way. The Red Crescent communicated with the Israeli military, as they do, to say, hey, we're coming to help this little girl. Please don't fire. They agreed they wouldn't. The Red Crescent showed up. They engaged both the first responders and the vehicle where the young girl was, and everybody died. That's really unfortunate, and that's unfortunately endemic of many of the circumstances where the Israelis somehow paint to the public or to the world that they're just protecting themselves and defending themselves. But I would ask you, how is that defending yourself? A little 6-year-old, 5-year-old girl is of no threat to the Israelis. So they knew what was happening, and they did it anyway. So I don't know how you can justify that. Okay, I think the next person on here was going to be Brenda, then It's Just Free, and then Zio. Hi, Brenda.
Hey, Chip, can you skip me? I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, I'll skip you. Thanks, Brenda. Okay, it's just Fee. Please take your turn. Thank you. If you're there, it's okay.
Hold on, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to get something off my chest real quick.
Okay.
And I harbor a little bit, Well, that's an understatement. I harbor a lot of resentment towards Israel, but for one thing in particular that I want to touch on right now, for everything,
Okay.
but for this one thing in particular, for making me believe that these people broke out of a prison and somehow made it over a fence in paragliders only to R-word women. The fact that they were so adamant about that, and our own president parroted it, and I do you understand where I'm coming from? It's such a horrific lie.
Well, to be fair to the Israeli side, there's a lot of questions as to how it happened because it's usually a very heavily guarded space. There's also the questions
Yeah.
of what actually happened that day. I can tell you from personal experience, as other journalists also saw that compilation video, that there were plenty of atrocities purposely, carried out against civilians, which of
Oh
course
no,
was.
I definitely know that. I just recently watched the documentary myself. It's the R word stuff that really
Yes.
got to me. The systemic, um, them claiming it was systemic gang R with horrific torture methods and stuff like that. And
Did you find any ways to 100% corroborate those allegations? Because I've tried really hard to obtain something more than just conversation around it, to get evidence. And I know it's not simple to get evidence of such things sometimes. And as I've said clearly, I can't deny, or nobody should deny it without knowing for sure it didn't happen. But at the same time, it's hard to corroborate it because a lot of the confusion that comes out, as came out at the beginning with the babies, etc. Do you have direct evidence of it happening?
no, none whatsoever. They've tried to get third parties in to investigate it. The closest they got was that UN Representative Pramila Patten, and in her full report, she states that it's not based on any sort of evidence, um, no sort of forensics, and that there was no survivors to even interview. And the couple people that they did name in the original New York Times piece, their families came out and said that that didn't happen.
So is it unfair for those of us who have tried to make heads or tails of this to potentially have questions remaining in our mind about the veracity of some of these reports, or is that inconsiderate and insensitive to the victims that they've claimed this happened to?
Considering that, oh, by the way, have you seen the leaked focus group study?
Just real quick, I want to make sure that we have clarity here. So somebody in the comments says, and I want to be clear about this. Average name says, quote, "Do you have direct evidence of that happening?" End quote. Stupid question. We are TV spectators, LOL. Hey, I have no reason to doubt your point of view. I was very clear about that I don't have evidence to deny anything. But if you have video evidence, if it says TV, then somebody recorded that stuff. It wasn't just left to live broadcast. If there is evidence that's been presented in video form that does substantiate that, it was not presented to the special groups of journalists where they provided the 47-minute compilation of GoPro cameras and first responder video. So I would believe that if the Israelis
And the
wanted,
same goes for the UN Pramila
again, so getting
Patten.
back to the point, when all the reports that flow to the public don't include the things that people claim they saw, I don't know where we're supposed to make that connection. But if it does exist, please share it. Point us to a website, Telegram group, share the videos, whatever. I have an email address in my bio. My Telegram is just my name, Chip Barnes. Send it. And I will, if I see it and I acknowledge it, not that I want to see it, but to be fair, I will acknowledge it because I think that's what we have to do as reasonable people, is to tell the truth. But so far, I've asked this to maybe 300 different people who said the same thing that you've said, and nothing has come my way. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. That's all.
Can I add something to that, actually?
Are you okay if Bernie goes next? Oh, it's just Fee?
Can I just say one thing real quick
Okay.
and then I'll bounce?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
When you say, is it okay to be spectacle? I think it's imperative in these cases to be spectacle, simply because they did a focus group. Did you see the results of that focus group?
I did
Where
not.
they decided, okay, they did a focus group where they were deciding, and it leaked, What repulses the public the
Oh,
most?
yes, I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, and the number one thing was R word. And that's when you started seeing the very, very heavy graphic headlines
And
and
what about the Israelis shooting at the people that day? Because I saw clips of helicopters that were shooting at their own
Yeah.
civilians,
We're
and
gonna
that was
we're gonna
actually like
we'll cover that in 1 second. That was a big part of the day. Real quick, just to clarify, and I don't mean to contradict anybody. It was a conservative linguistics specialist consultant by the name of Frank Lutz, who does a lot of work for the Republican Party in America, but he also was hired out by the Israelis. It wasn't a focus group. From his research, he knew that the types of atrocities that people get most angry about to justify the Israeli response and not have it be questioned were young kids, babies, and women being assaulted. So that's why they ran. That's what some
okay.
people allege to why they ran with that narrative, even though they weren't able to provide any evidence directly to the people who screened their material.
I got you. I saw a graph, and that's where I thought it came
Now,
from.
somebody in the comments named
Um,
Frog Mellow Witch. By the way, I didn't hear it. Says 2 cases of necrophilia. So, have you heard anything to substantiate that? Because I have not.
no,
I have
absolutely
not.
none. No.
It's my first time hearing it.
Okay, so again, I'm not sure about that. Again, I don't want to be insensitive and claim to the contrary because I don't know. But again, if you ever heard Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, those who haven't heard of him, you can look this up. I did a video about this. His words, he was the former Chief of Staff to U.S. Secretary of Defense Colin Powell. No, I'm sorry, Secretary of State Colin Powell in the Bush administration. And these are his words. He says, you can't believe a single word that comes out of the mouths of an Israeli official ever. These people are liars. They are inveterate liars. They lie. Those are pretty strong words. And in my experience over the years that I've been trying to follow this conflict and make heads or tails, that has been my same, acknowledgement. And as much as I don't want to point that out, all of the things that are confused, obfuscated, misrepresented, overstated, exaggerated, have been exactly congruent with the other things that have been said in this case. So it's difficult for one who's experienced that pattern of behavior to just kind of drop all that and say, okay, I believe you. That's all.
The consequence of taking everything that they say at face value is tens of thousands of dead children. This is why we need to be skeptical.
Okay, thanks for sharing your views and for informing the audience. I appreciate that. We do have to
All
get
right, have a good day.
I want to give people a heads up. I'm sorry if I dropped you prematurely. I was not trying to cut you off. I thought you were finished. I want to let the audience know that I have a friend of mine who's coming over in about 25 minutes, maybe a little sooner. So I just want to make everybody aware of that. Maybe 20 minutes. I'm not even sure. But when he shows up, I have to end the live. So I would ask politely if each guest can try to limit their remarks to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, which I know isn't fair. Other people got more time, but that's just the constraint I'm up against. I have a hard exit around 3:40 p.m., I believe. Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, let me see. Who was next? Did Bernie get a chance to go? Or
No,
was
I
it,
didn't.
it was it. How do you pronounce your name? Is it E3RER? Go ahead, Bernie. Let's hear from what you have to say.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
go after her?
Yes, you may.
All right, thanks. So I
Uh-huh.
want to first touch on the grape allegations. As a survivor, I'm very reluctant to question those, but absent of any evidence and with more exposés coming out, it kind of it's causing you to like really having to question it. So most of the mainstream media outlets who ran with the story of systematic grape Hamas using that as a war tool, most of the information that they got came from a New York Times article that was written by either a current or former Israeli intelligence officer who has no experience whatsoever in journalism. The family that they highlighted that on, unfortunately, the daughter that they lost their loved one, that family came out and said that their daughter was not grape. The situation, and they were certain about this because they had spent about 4 minutes, the last 4 minutes alive, they had spent on the phone with her, and they don't feel as if there was enough time from that 4 minutes for her to have been grape. The biggest thing that muddied this, as I said again, is the mainstream
Hi.
press ran with the mainstream press ran with this article, and they then parroted it and said systematic. Now, I don't doubt that that might have been great, but I don't, based on what we've seen, there's no evidence that it was systematic, meaning that it was a weapon used and it happened to hundreds of women, as we've been told. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, she's gone already, Zionist Bobby or something like that, where she said that Israel gave Palestinians Gaza and the West Bank. And that's where we're problematic, right? Israel didn't give that to them. That belonged to them. And if we're going to start to talk about trying to find a way for these two groups of people to live together, one group cannot continue to have a hierarchy view of saying we gave it to them. Actually, it belonged to them. And when you come on and you say something like that, it's inflammatory, and it shows that you're not trying to find a solution to this almost 100-year conflict that keeps resulting in people being unalive. And with this particular one, where the most amount of people have been unalive during one conflict, during one single conflict that began October 7, even though it didn't begin there. It's important for, I think, pro-Israelis and Israelis to understand your language, and you saying that these people have no right to this land is very problematic. It goes to further oppressing them. And I don't think Palestinians, and rightfully so, will stop opposing and stop, by any means necessary, stop opposing Israel and Israel's existence until they have their own state. The Palestinians too, Barack Obama said this, the Palestinians too are entitled, they deserve their own state. Palestinian children need to grow up safely. They need to be able to go off to college. The same rights that Israelis have, Palestinians and their children should be afforded. That's it.
Hi.
Chip, you're mute. You were muted.
Yeah, Brenda, it's your turn. Thank you for that point of view, by the way. Thank you. It's very commonly held. Brenda, you're next, please.
Hi, Chip. So I think there's something that I've just really been thinking about for the last few days, because it's something that I've kind of seen come up from personal experience, and I think from your experience of what you talked about last night. So I think what we all have to be cognizant of at this point is that at this point in history, we've all been enduring as a global collective about 6 months of trauma just based on what we're witnessing happen, and not being able to understand why what's happening is happening, not being able to understand how fellow humans can do what they're doing, and how our systems don't work that are able to stop this. And so I think having people's realities kind of shatter in front of the ears, in front of their faces, just kind of is bringing on a lot of collective trauma as a global collective. And so I think we need to be cognizant of that. And then the fact that everybody is already coming with their own baggage. So and it's not like we all started October 7th just all having the most perfect lives. We all have our traumas, we all have our triggers, we have our fears. And I think that's what's kind of causing some infighting, is the inability to empathize with each other, because empathy is, from my personal experience and just what I know about human development, is that empathy is one of the hardest things to be able to, one of the hardest just skills. It's a difficult skill, and it's not something that is readily available to everybody. And I think this tension that is happening is just kind of exploding everywhere and just landing wherever. So I think it's important to understand the perspective of the psychological and the human development and the spiritual and generational trauma that Palestinians and Israelis have had to endure. Because I think the point, and this is a point that I think it's difficult sometimes for people to understand why you have Israeli guests Chip, and why you treat them the way that you treat them. I think it's because I think it's difficult for a lot of people to understand why Israelis are the way they are. And I say this all the time on your lives and on other lives, but there's no such thing as like bad people. There's no such thing as like evil people or like entirely evil people. We're just people that are capable of incredible good, and we're people that are capable of incredible bad under very specific set of circumstances. And it's all based on, you know, generational trauma. It's all based on your upbringing. It's all based on your environment and, you know, just what you have with you. And I think what's happened, and this is something that I encourage a lot of people to research, what it takes to get Israelis to the point where they are now, to dehumanize Palestinians to how they are. I follow a lot of creators, and I can't think of any other handles off the top of my head, but I do follow a lot of ex-Zionist Jewish creators who talk about, especially American kids, who talk about their experiences of how they grew up in the United States and like the indoctrination that they received from the state of Israel in the United States, and like the trips, you know, the birthright trips that they had to take, and like the crazy drills that they make them believe that they're about to get T attacked. And so like this is MK. I want everybody to understand that this is MK Ultra style of programming. And if you're not sure what MK Ultra is, look it up. It's everywhere on the internet. But like they receive MK Ultra style indoctrination, which is based on fear and trauma from childhood. Look up any of these videos where they have little kids, they go into their classrooms in Israel, and they talk to little kids about like, oh, you know, what do you feel like when you see a Palestinian? And the kid is like, oh, I hate them. But that's because, like, think about how many kids you know that can use the word hate so easily. It's because these kids are indoctrinated from a very early age. And I think it's something that I don't justify. It's not a justification for what's happening, but it's important to understand that this is why when they tell you that you're comparing what's happening, Gaza to the Warsaw Ghetto, they don't understand that because they don't see Palestinians the same way that we do or that you do. It's like they have been indoctrinated from a very early age to believe that. Like I was indoctrinated in the United States to the same way to hate Arabs because, like, especially with 9/11, I had an aunt who died at the Pentagon. And the first time I got on a plane was a couple of months after 9/11. And I mean, I shamefully admit that because of my programming, I was scared when I saw an Arab person on the plane. But that's because of what the fear-based tactics that were done by my government on me as a teenager. I was 16 years old when 9/11 happened. So imagine that every day of your entire life. Like, think about what it takes to actually unlearn that. And for me, it's taken like decades of experience of like looking into all of these things and to personal development. And I think this is the important part that we're not understanding is like, yes, all of us can be pro-Palestine, but that doesn't mean that everybody's done the personal development work that it takes to actually be able to empathize with the other side. And again, like, I think what's happening is like, we're not supporting what's happening. We just need to we can't dehumanize the other side as well. Because I think that's just a vicious cycle that is going to get us nowhere. We can't just say like, oh, all those Israeli people they're just all evil and they just don't care about anybody. It's not that. They're not evil. Maybe they've done some evil things or like they're doing this, but like I think we need to really bring it into the human side. And if one of my areas of expertise is childhood development, because I'm an educator of almost 20 years, and so I know what it does to children, the type of upbringing, that you provide. Environment is a lot. And so I just want to offer that to everybody.
We got so many more people. We only have like 12
no,
minutes.
I was done. I just want to offer that to everybody just to like, let's stop fighting and just like start to show some empathy. But that was it. Thank you, Chip. Have a good evening or afternoon.
You too, Brenda. Take care. Thanks for being here. I think there was someone named Elise in the comments. Not everybody sees the comments, so I'll share this. She said that it's the exact opposite truth, that pro-Palestinians are the ones that are propagandized and that their minds. So I want to share this as a juxtaposition. There are many people who have been through the experience of going through the things that I believe, and Americans go through it too. It's not just Israelis or Americans who support Israel. of being brought up in a certain way with certain beliefs and certain statements and certain ideas. And it makes sense that somebody would see something a certain way based on that. I certainly saw things differently when I was younger because of that. But when you get older and you start to turn over rocks, you're like, damn, what's that? That's not a part of what I was told. And I think a lot of people who have been pro-Israeli, or at least as far as being pro-Zionist, have shifted their views because some of those rocks have either been turned over or thrust into their face by people or their experiences. A good example is comedian Dave Smith. If you don't know who Dave Smith is, you can look him up. He's sort of he had an epiphany. He's like, wait a second. People like Miko Peled, who's an outspoken advocate now, he went through an epiphany. His father was an Israeli general. He has every reason in the world to maintain the societal and family relationships by speaking the same language and believing the same things. But he came to learn things. And because of his conscience, he's like, wait a second, this is messed up. We have Breaking the Silence, which are the members of the Israeli military, the former IDF soldiers and pilots have spoken to the things that they did and that they thought were correct given what they'd been told was the right thing, like Brenda said, about fear of the other, and that they needed to subject these people to this because if they didn't, they'd be attacked by them. Meanwhile, most people who are civilians, like Brenda said, are just regular people. But the Israelis have chosen to do things proactively to terrorize regular Palestinians, to kind of keep them in their place and make them know that they have no ability to break from under their plight. That's really unfortunate. But if you're somebody who believes that's a bunch of garbage, look up some of those names and see if I'm lying. There's a great documentary I keep mentioning. It's called Life in Occupied Palestine by Jewish American Anna Baltzer. Again, from a Zionist family growing up, same type of introductory thinking. She went to the West Bank. She went to live with a Palestinian family as a part of an aid group for 5 months, and it totally shifted her belief system because she saw the lived experience of being on the other end of that oppressive regime that most Israelis probably don't even know exists, or they think that it's justified based on its security. It's all about understanding the humanity of others. I completely agree with Brenda. Okay, Danny, I think you're next, and then Zoloff, and then Tony, and that might just take us to the end of today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Chip. I appreciate you and all the things that you do. Just wanted to say that there is a lot of lies, and there's ways of proving these lies just by using our common sense. For instance, when you're asking for evidence and there's no evidence, that's one of the ways to kind of decipher what's really going on. And I've been blessed to be able to kind of weed through all the lies and just kind of see the truth. And it's pretty apparent that, doesn't seem like there's any hostages. Like the whole hostage situation doesn't even make sense. And I just want to...
Can you repeat that about hostages? What did you say?
Saying about the hostages, like that there are hostages. It doesn't make sense that there are hostages the way things are being talked about.
Can you explain what you mean by that? Because my understanding is there's probably a little over 100 people who are still detained by the H group, wherever they may be. I don't know what health they're in or what condition. Is that something that you think is not accurate?
Yes, exactly. Because if there were hostages, then how would they know where to, send the missiles?
Well, I don't think that's one of the things they don't know. In fact, initially during the conflict, I think 51 or so, unfortunately, Israeli hostages that were positioned in different places. When the munitions came down and hit the structures, they didn't survive that, which is horrible, and they would never have been unalived had they not been taken in those circumstances. But I don't believe the Israeli military, that's part of the problem. They don't know where to direct their energy and force, and it's a very difficult adversary with the tunnel system. So it's just a very difficult thing to try to go after, whether it was the American military, the Israelis, anybody. It's almost an insurmountable task to ask armed forces to successfully navigate such a set of circumstances. But I do believe, I don't know how many are still alive, but I do believe the reports from the Israeli side that there's still over 100 people that are still, somewhere.
So that's another thing. Like the media and the information that we're getting, it's only coming from one side. I haven't heard anything coming from really the Palestinian side. Everything comes from the IDF, the Israeli government. So it's very hard to believe just one side. And again, the way to prove that there's absolutely no hostages, there's so many ways to prove it, because if you kind of dismantle the story in itself and kind of timeline everything, There's really no evidence of it at all, and it's
Sorry,
just
can I
it's
interrupt
just
for a sec?
hearsay. I just wanted to
Sorry.
just go on one last point.
Shit. I'm sorry. What I was trying to say, Danny, I mute that for the dog. What I was trying to say, Danny, I apologize for that, guys. In terms of the things you're saying, the common knowledge right now varies significantly, or at least the common awareness, or the people's supposition of what's going on. If I was on the Israeli side and I heard somebody saying the things that you're saying, I would be, my head would be boiling. If you have receipts that show the things you're sharing and that you're certain about, I'm happy to have you on with those, but barring that, we can get the live taken down because people start mass reporting it because they get so angry. So if you have certainty around it, which it sounds like you do, what do you have to back up the certainty that you're sharing?
Well, if you listen to your live from yesterday when PG was talking about her hostage friend or so, you can see that there's absolutely no emotion, and the emotion that she gave was totally fake, and it's pretty obvious. Her acting is terrible. And that's how I can prove that. And it's so easy to see through the lies.
Okay, in other words, your conclusion based on an incident with one person who claims they have a friend that you thought was disingenuous or insincere, does that lead you to believe in terms of the total situation that it's all completely invalid? That doesn't seem like to be a logical extension.
Absolutely. It's not just one person. A lot of people say the same thing. They're like, oh, I have a friend that this and this happened to them. And that way it becomes a little bit more sensitive. You're kind of slowed down from asking the difficult questions because you think, oh, they're going through some emotions. But if actually they were going through emotions, there's no way they'd be on TikTok talking the way they do. Like, there's no emotion at all. You can see when they talk, there's absolutely zero emotion.
Okay, you're entitled to make that extrapolation. I don't know how the audience feels. We'll let them decide. I don't want to cut you off. Please come back. By the way, when I return from my little adventure, I'm going on for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I will be back on live because this is a great audience, great conversation. Everybody gets upset about something. There's somebody in here that got mad, calls what we just talked about, what was just spoken about anti-Semitic. Danny's entitled to his views, and if he really believes in his heart that the lack of sincerity and the presence of people on social media is indicative to him that people probably don't have hostages or family members or friends, that's his choice to make that. I don't share his view. My guess is there are hostages, but I've not seen the examples that Danny's referring to. So everybody has their take. That's okay. I think Zoloff was next, and then Tony. Thanks for being here, Danny, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much, Chip.
Yeah, have a nice night. Appreciate you being here. Come on back too. I'd love to have you back. Yes, Zola.
My thing is, I'm not going to say that there isn't hostages. There is hostages. That was the whole point that got started on October 7th. But my thing is, I do believe that there are some Israelis that genuinely are not with the situation that's happening right now. And yes, there are some hostages, but there are thousands of Palestinians locked up for no reason. Most of them don't even have a charge or anything like that, okay? And for us to think that Israel is a victim in this war, it's absolutely insane just by looking at the details of what's happening. One side gets to control what the others eat, what they drink, where they go, where they sleep, how they communicate, whether they can communicate or not. They are able to put $7 million ad on the Super Bowl, an event that's most watched event all over the world.
Yeah, fair point.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a fair point. So, yeah, it's discouraging sometimes to see that there's just a lot of one-sidedness in terms of power and asymmetry, both militarily, financially, politically. It's frustrating, and so I can feel that in the exasperation of many Palestinians that the situation just completely seems to go the wrong direction in perpetuity, and that frustrates the heck out of me too. I just don't know, with the United States playing the role that it's taking, how that's going to change in the short term. Something has to shift for that to change.
it's almost like it's infuriating, and I feel really bad for I'm not a Palestinian, but if I was a Palestinian, I live in the United States, and I'm looking at what's happening. It's almost like United States is a company that is keeping their interest apart, and Israeli government, it almost feels like a company as well, because they're not truly listening to their civilians as well. Right before October 7th, they were almost about to get into a civil war themselves. They are not happy with their government themselves, and they're suppressing information, and they're controlling what everything is. Why is TikTok being banned right now? It's the only place that has somewhat of a platform for people to speak truly, and it's the one place that they cannot control. That's the one place that the American government cannot control. American government, if anything, I feel like Palestine, yes, is occupied physically, but I feel like America is occupied mentally, because how do you have an entire lobbyist group that doesn't even register as a foreign entity, and you spend so much money and lobbyists? They are infiltrating every part of this government, and they get to make decisions. When they say ban TikTok, banning TikTok comes from rich people wanting to control their narrative, mostly Zionists wanting to control the narrative. That's what it comes down to. So how are you going to tell me, are Palestinians able to contribute to the ban of TikTok because they don't like the way things are going? Are they able to ban to put any sanctions on Meta for highly favoring Israelis and Zionists? No. The conversation never goes where, how could you put someone in their own country in a concentration camp and say that you are the victim? And what part of that?
Yeah, I think to be fair, that the terminology of either open air prison or concentration camp might be a little bit overly, I guess it looked hyperbolic. I think that what I would call it is a permanently enclosed and controlled enclave, where people don't have freedom of movement, and another power has complete control over the goods and the control of the airspace, the land, and the communications processes. It's just, they're living under very difficult circumstances. Zola, I want to have you back. I want to let the audience know I have about 9 minutes left. A friend's coming by. We're going to do something. I'm going to have a life for an hour or two, but I'll be back. And for those of you who do not get a chance to speak, if you're able to, if your time zone allows you, I'll be back on probably about 6 or 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I know people in Europe and elsewhere, that's late, so I'm sorry about that. I did want to give Dr. Milena a chance, but Tony's right before you. Tony, if you can keep it to 2 minutes or less so we can give Dr. Milena the final 5 or 6 minutes. And I apologize for Dr. Milena. I wish it were longer, but that's just what I have to do today. Go ahead, Tony.
Hey, Chip, how you doing?
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I just want to let everybody know this is a big, huge game. Okay, it's all about the Ben Gurion Canal and Suez Canal. The Israeli government, their biggest useful tool they have in this earth is Hamas, because they doing job for them. So the not Israeli or the Palestinian, they have nothing to do with that. Only poor people dying. And by the way, those governments, they don't care about civilian people. They don't care about poor people, because they are not charity organization. They work. And by the way, that Ben Gurion Canal, it's got funded by some bank here in the U.S. for 30 years program and interest 1%. So it's all about Ben Gurion Canal. They want to control the whole world by that canal instead of the Canal of Suez. Plus, one more thing, that the way they bombing the target in Gaza, they wiping them out of the map. They not just targeting. They not just bombing little targets. The way they bombing them, that's show they demolishing. They planning there is no life is going to be there, because they needed that city to be the main port for that canal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for being here. Dr. Milena, what would you like to share?
Okay, I think I've been here before, but unfortunately you couldn't hear me. I said I'm born in Moscow, I'm Israeli, I'm American. Guys, when I hear those things, I don't know. I know people lack of knowledge. First of all, occupation. From 48, the lady who spoke before me, not the guy, the lady, up to 67, Gaza Strip belonged to Egyptians. Nothing happened. West Bank was belonged to Jordans. Learn your history. From 2005, none of Israelis was in the Gaza Strip. I'm in Europe. I checked how much money Gaza Strip get from European Union, from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia. Guys, it's supposed to be Singapore. No Israelis were there. None. Zero. October 7 happened. My daughter lost nine kids was being killed. I'm emotional. I apologize. 4 was damaged heavily in Nova. 1, Omer Shem Tov, is still in a hostage. I'm an Israeli. I lived there during Intifada. Gaza, we have port. What are you talking about? We have Haifa. We have Tel Aviv port. At least look at the map. None of Egyptians, did you see what kind of border they have? Did you see the Egyptians? Palestinians come to work. I'm a doctor. I worked in Israel. I'm specialized in autoimmune disorders. I work with Arabs. We have more than 2 million Arabs, Israeli passports. What are you talking about? They come to us to work from Palestine and they pay Hamas. Why they don't build anything to support the civilians? Do you know how much money they get? Billions. And who's the billionaires? Who's the billionaires? Sinwar have more than 4 billions? Why you not asking? Why you not asking? Those people, they dogs for trained to kill. Everywhere that they go, they went.
You're mute, Chip. You're mute.
Yeah, sorry, Dr. Molina, please don't use terms like animals or to describe other people, okay? In fairness. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay to say Zionist own the word. If we were on the word, then it's no problem. No problem with TikTok, no problem with media, no nothing. All those money went to Gaza Strip. People don't even, they say Palestinians, we are Palestinians. Palestina, it's a region, it's not a nation. It's not a nation. The part of Lebanon, it's a Palestine. Jews came back because of Zionism, because we are we are Zionists. We are coming home. We bought land. We bought a lot of land prior to that. With Ottoman, we started in 700s, but most of the land being purchased in 1800s. Part of the Lebanon, we also purchased. And you can Google this information before you saying something. You don't know anything about this conflict and you watch it from somewhere in the world. And you think you know it is about money. No.
Are you talking in general or are you talking about me? I just want to make sure who you're directing your comments to.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking in general. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking to people whom giving speech about Israel, about apartheid. Okay, from 2005, West Bank, okay, we have Hamas and we have Mahmoud Abbas, we have Fatah. We have clans of Arabs, what they don't nice to each other. You don't know anything about it. The Fatah, they being burned from buildings because Gaza Strip Hamas took in 2005. And that's it. Since then, Fatah completely separate from Hamas. And people don't even go to this conflict to understand what is going on. Since 2005, none of the Israeli leg was in this land. What they did, Russians helped them to build the tunnels. Actually, I think it was Novosibirsk subway engineering. And this is the big problem because they don't care about people. What you saying about cancer kids who were in our hospitals all the time? When I gave birth to my daughter in Hadassah, it was people from Palestine with complicated things. They coming to our hospitals and we're treating them. No problems, but nobody talk about it. Of course, of course not, because Jews, it's a problem. But before you go into any conflict, you have to check from every part, not just, oh, Jews, they own everything. We work hard. You know how I worked so hard, 10 years of education and everything. Yes, I have PhD, but you know what? I worked for it. And I speak 4 languages because I worked for it, not because somebody gave me something, because I worked for it. And this is my point before you going to.
Chip, you're muted again.
Sorry. Dr. Molina, I'm sorry to stop you. I normally take notes when somebody goes through so many consecutive points that you raise, and I appreciate you sharing your views. There's probably a lot to be said just from other people's points of views to talk about some of the things you raised. Here's what I would like to ask of you, if you're willing to do so. I'm going to be live again tonight. I think you said you're in the Netherlands, which is probably 5 hours ahead of us. So I'll probably be back on around 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. tonight. That may be too late for you. But come on back. My normal schedule, just for the audience, is Wednesdays from 7 p.m. Eastern time to 9 p.m. Eastern. And then on Saturdays, like today, I go from 12 noon until usually 4 p.m. or later. It's not that I'd love to continue this dialogue with you, Dr. Molina. We just kind of short on time. I did want to get Federico, who's been waiting a long time today to get in, just to let him briefly share his views on whatever subject, or maybe talk about a few things that you raised, Dr. Molina. Thanks for being here. Hi, Federico.
Hey, Chip. Hello, everyone. Dr. Molina, I mean, I heard everything you said. I'm sorry that you are very, very, very misconcepted. I don't understand. You know, you have a PhD. You could be a little bit more acknowledged of the whole history, you buying the land and all of that. I'm not going to get into all of that because we spoke about it many times. But I just want to point out something to you, Chip, that I was being dropped the whole time today. I don't know if I was dropped by system.
Just to speak to that really quickly, I try to announce over and over again that when people try to get in, sometimes TikTok just won't let you, doesn't finish the connection. So the best thing to remedy that, just for other people and yourself, you have to leave TikTok, turn on your airplane mode, turn your signal back on, come back into TikTok and re-request, and 99% of the time you come right in.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to point today a vehicle of the UNIFIL in Lebanon, the United Nations Forces, was struck by an Israeli drone. I don't know what is the purpose behind it to strike a United Nations vehicle. The second thing I wanted to bring up to your attention is I think we have to make a live. I know you about the scenarios of that's what's going on right now in Gaza. What are the upcoming scenarios and possibility? Because I know these the Zionists don't know what's really happening in the countries around them. They don't know the power of the people that is happening around them. And I see what's going on in Jordan right now. It's been for 6 days. The Israeli embassy has been under siege. People don't want to leave. And Egypt is happening the same. So usually when a big event is coming, stuff like that stir up, like demonstration massive where they don't listen to the government anymore. And I think they should know what are the possibility, what's going on in Lebanon, what kind of firepower in Lebanon, what's going on in Yemen, what kind of firepower is in Yemen, what's going on in Syria, and what kind of firepower in Syria. And unless they don't know that stuff, because I know that the Israeli media don't want them to know that. They don't want to hear. They don't want them to hear that, because if not, they will take off. They will run away. But it's fair towards the Israeli citizens. I know if you're Zionist, you're not going to run anyway. But it's fair towards the Israeli and the Jewish non-Zionists that live in Israel that they know what is the possibility of what is coming to them if they keep it going like that. Because I know that what is happening in the north of Palestine, north of occupied Palestine, southern Lebanese border, you have over 250 settlers are out of their settlements. They're all in the middle. And I know from videos, I don't know if they can see these videos or not. Some settlements in the north are being destroyed completely. And yesterday's the attack that the Israeli forces did in Syria. And the ironic is how come ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Israeli army strike at the same time? Like, what is the cooperation? What is how do they coordinate their attacks if ISIS is an enemy of Israel, Al-Qaeda is an enemy of Israel? How does make sense that they coordinate the same attack at the same moment from Israeli Air Force and the ISIS and the Al Qaeda of Syria. I think the upcoming week it's gonna be tougher and tougher, and I think it's fair. I know a lot of the pro-Israeli, they say they're not scared. They're not scared. I don't want you to be scared, and I don't want you to be unalived. All I want you to know is to understand that, the same way that you say in after October 7 these are consequences, and now we say after Gaza there is consequences. So that's all I wanted to say today, and I hope everybody wake up and understand what is coming up to them, and because when it's late, it's too late. You can't change nothing when it's late.
Thank you for sharing your point of view and for sharing the idea that things are sort of brewing. That's interesting. Okay, I wanted to let everybody know in the audience, first of all, thank you so much for everybody who was here for this little interesting conversation over the past couple of hours. I am going to be back on live again in maybe 2.5 hours, probably around 6 or 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm taking a brief break to go do something fun outdoors with a friend. But I wanted to let you know that this is being recorded. It's going to be uploaded a little later tonight. So if you want to review this particular conversation, if you came in late or early and you had to leave, it'll be on YouTube and Rumble, the links to which are in my bio. It says Chip Barnes. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. Just click on that. If you're outside the United States, the characters you have to type into your browser to get to that same spot is available in my bio. So I want to thank everybody. If you're somebody who did not get a chance to speak or only got a chance to be here for a little bit, come on back. I'd love to have you up, but I have to run for now, but I'll see you later. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. See you soon.